So I think I just saw an average update when it comes to Bittensor, and let me explain why, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and afterwards I'll talk about the price of TAO, which is Bittensor's native token. However, here's the thing. The Open Tensor Foundation recently made a post saying how, basically, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, they said congratulations to the team at Covenant AI for supposedly making history, they say, right, with the largest permissionless and incentivized LLM pre-training run ever. I mean, okay, I guess that sounds pretty cool. Do a lot of people care about it though? Probably not really, right? Because there is like even under 200 likes when it comes to this post, but you know what? I still think it's pretty cool nonetheless if I still see some activity. The reason why this even matters when it comes to Bittensor is because Covenant AI is supposedly something that is kind of deeply integrated when it comes to Bittensor, right? For instance, it kind of acts as sort of the umbrella, I would say, for something like Templar AI, which is a Bittensor subnet, also something called Basilica AI, which is another Bittensor subnet, and also I take a look at something else called Grail AI. So I mean, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Now, again, a lot of people will think it's not the best news of all time or the best update, which I do agree. I think it's not the worst either, though, right? I think it's like average. So I do find this to be pretty cool. You know, if I ask a lot of my friends out there, do they know what Covenant AI is? You know, probably they have no idea. Even if some do believe in Bittensor, I think they probably sometimes don't really know what that is. But I still think it's pretty cool nonetheless that I still see something like this going on when it comes to something regarding Bittensor. The reason why is because imagine if Covenant AI has more popularity, won't that indirectly somewhat affect Bittensor, right? I mean, it's only kind of logical again. It's kind of like the umbrella, I would say, to something like Basilica AI, Grail AI, something like also Templar AI, which again, people like to say, okay, whatever. But again, Templar AI, Basilica AI, they're Bittensor subnets, so it's only natural for me to assume that if something like that has popularity, that may indirectly, again, trickle down to something like Bittensor. But this is just my mindset. However, people like to tell me, well, who cares about this? Well, here's the thing. When it comes to Bittensor, its main focus is, of course, AI and as well as machine learning, in my opinion. In which case, you know, if there's something exciting going on when it comes to AI regarding Bittensor, you know, I just think it's pretty cool at the end of the day. However, though, people like to tell me, well, who cares about this? TAO, it hasn't really moved much. And yeah, I mean, it hasn't really done much, still around $200, but here's the thing. If let's say TAO never ever sees a hypothetical altcoin season, for whatever reason, let's just assume that, right? Because it's at $200, if it just goes back to what it reached in March of 2024, we're over 3 times lower than that. Keep in mind, in March of 2024, TAO reached around $700. We're now around 200. Imagine if the pullback that we saw, you know, throughout 2025 and all that type of stuff, imagine if the pullback to TAO was only to like, I don't know, $500. The journey back to 700, it's not really that impressive, right? But because we're around 200, if we just go back to around $700, which again, we're over 3 times lower than that, I'm already going to Sizzler. That's the way you take a look at it. Time for me to go to Applebee's, right? Red Lobster. That's the way you take a look at it. Again, the reason why is because TAO is relatively speaking, quote unquote, having such a major pullback, generally speaking, compared to where it once was. If it just went back to that level, I'm already going to Sizzler. Now, here's the thing. Does anyone think that March of 2024 was a altcoin season? No, I don't. I mean, of course, altcoins were doing better than right now, but by no means I think that was a hypothetical altcoin season in my mind, at least. Especially when compared to like 2021, no way. I don't think that was an altcoin season in 2024. 2021 was an altcoin season. We saw that at that point, right? At a certain point, I would say in 2021. But I don't think we've seen an altcoin season during this cycle, and I don't think 2024 was either. So TAO, just because it's hypothetically quote unquote had such a massive pullback, if it just goes back to non-altcoin season levels, like $700, let's say, it's Sizzler time for me, in my opinion. Now, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but in order for TAO to just go back to 700, we've already seen it doesn't require a hypothetical altcoin season. Again, we're over 3 times lower than that. Bitcoin is not over 3 times lower than its all-time high, right? It's also not around 3 times lower than in March of 2024. It's just not. That's the way I view it. So, okay, sure, TAO may never have the popularity that Shiba Inu or Dogecoin has, some people may argue, and that may be true for this cycle. But in my opinion, it doesn't need to defeat it, right? It doesn't need to become better than Shiba Inu or Dogecoin. No, it does not, in terms of popularity. TAO does not need to be more popular than that. If it just goes back to March of 2024 levels, I'm not going to complain about anything. That's kind of my mindset. Keep in mind, when it comes to TAO, people like to tell me, oh, no one's going to care about this. Well, here's the thing. TAO is currently ranked 37th in the world in terms of market cap. Is it going to be randomly forgotten about like that if there was a hypothetical altcoin season? For a top 50 project, right, within this space in terms of market cap. I just have a hard time believing that. That's the thing. Just because, usually these top 50 projects, it almost even doesn't really matter if it's a meme or something like that, or even a project with good fundamentals. Usually, it's pretty hard for them to be irrelevant randomly if there was a hypothetical altcoin season. However, I am not telling anyone to do anything. But really, again, this is why I'm still dollar cost averaging into TAO, because anything below like 300 when it comes to TAO, personally for me, if I'm dollar cost averaging, I don't necessarily view it as a moment where I would complain because, again, if it just goes back to 700, I'm already kind of having this going to Sizzler type of moment already. Let alone right now at around 200. This is just my mindset though, right? So when people like to tell me, oh, Bittensor is never going to become the most popular. I mean, yeah, it doesn't need to though, in my opinion. TAO just going back to 700, I'm not going to complain about that. TAO does not need to be the most popular project out there of all time to go back to $700. It does not. Was TAO the most popular thing of all time back in March of 2024? No, it's not, right? So it doesn't need to either moving forward, hypothetically, in my opinion. So, just kind of my mindset is, even if, let's say, we go back to December of 2024, at that point, TAO was already around $700 too, right? So either way, it goes back to March of 2024, or it goes to December of 2024, I'm not going to complain. But let's say we don't think about 700. Let's say we think about TAO at 500, right? Which it kind of basically almost reached in November of 2025. So we're around 2.5 times lower than that, basically. We're around 2.5 times lower than where TAO was just back in November of 2025. Just imagine that. November? Like, that's not even half a year ago. So yeah, overall, I haven't given up when it comes to Bittensor, but it's been a pretty quick update because, again, I saw the news, I would say, or the update regarding Covenant AI. And again, OpenTensor, they made a post regarding that. So of course, if I see something related to Bittensor, which I'm a fan of, I'll talk about it. But yeah, besides that point though, I just want to say thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll stay tuned for future upcoming Bittensor videos because I'm going to be making more updated videos. So again, hopefully I'll stay tuned for that. It's been Lee the Captain, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.